Have you ever wondered how biostasis works? Let us guide you through it. Medical biostasis is an advanced technology that aims to give you the best chance to live much, much longer than what is currently possible. But why do people want to live longer? Some people just love life and want to experience it for as long as possible. Some people are just curious about the future. They want to see what future cities will be like and what humanity will be able to achieve. Others think the world would be better and more fair if the length of your life was your own choice. There is no doubt that you will ever run out of things to do in a multifaceted world like the one we live in. In the end, the motivations are plentiful. But how can someone sign up for biostasis? First, you simply sign up with us and our insurance partner. It just takes a few minutes. To start, we only need some personal information. Don't worry, it's a simple process and we will guide you through every step of the way. Biostasis is achieved with the help of cryopreservation. Cryopreservation is a very advanced procedure that's still rather expensive and therefore not widely available. Tomorrow offers high-quality cryopreservation with prices starting from €100,000 and going all the way up to €400,000. Of course, this is a lot of money that few people can easily afford. But there is a solution. Together with our big-term life insurance partner, we offer a subscription model which brings the cost down to only €30 a month. About 90% of all biostasis contracts are funded via a term life insurance model. Let's say you're 30 years old and you want to sign up. The first thing you need to do is sign up with Tomorrow Biostasis, and we automatically contract with our term life insurance partner for your coverage. Now, should you pass away during the coverage period, the term life insurance will cover 100% of the cryopreservation cost. You are protected from day one. Should you pass away after the coverage period, then unfortunately the term life insurance will not cover the cryopreservation cost. But of course there are other funding options for this situation as well. We make sure that our customers have everything in place well in advance. Furthermore, there is a high chance that prices will come down significantly in the future, as we work consistently to reduce the cost of a high-quality cryopreservation. Congratulations! You are now fully signed up. Now, should anything happen to you where current medical technology can't save you, like a terminal heart disease, cancer, or whatever it might be, and the worst case happens and you should die, our team stands ready to pick you up and bring you to a medical research institute that is equipped for cryopreservation. Cryopreservation is an advanced procedure that uses medical cryoprotectant solution and very low temperatures to protect your body, and most importantly your brain, the part that makes you, against degradation. We keep you safe and sound for however long it takes until medical technology will be advanced enough that revival is possible. While we can't guarantee, that is arguably better than any other option. Then, once technology makes it possible, we will revive you. Should you have gotten cryopreserved at an old age, then revival will only be done once rejuvenation technology is available and the human lifespan is much longer than it currently is. Sometimes people are worried that life in the future might not be as enjoyable as it is today. But if history has shown us anything, it is that the average quality of life keeps getting better during the years. Now, after revival, you are free to continue your life as fit and happy as ever. Of course, this is a complex topic where a short video doesn't really do it justice. We are more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Just reach out to us. Find out more at tomorrowbiostasis.com.
Welcome everybody to our YouTube webinar to Introduction to Cryopreservation, or Introduction to Biostasis. We usually do these webinars once in a while to introduce people to the topic, and then of course are available to answer any questions that you might have. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to just put them into the YouTube chat, and then we'll go through all the questions at the end. I'll give you a quick introduction for around 20 minutes or so that we have ample time to answer all and any questions. Unfortunately, due to another engagement directly after, I need to leave around 5 minutes before 7. But if we don't get around to answer every questions, I'm more than happy to also be available for having a one-to-one conversation. Just feel free to schedule a call on our webpage. And now, without further ado, let me briefly introduce the topic and then answer any questions that you might have. So, my name is Emil, and the tech people need to show me. Now it works, perfect. So my name is Emil. I'm a medical doctor by training, and then did cancer research, built a few tech companies, but always with the goal to build a company that does something in the longevity and life extension space. And then over time, I got more and more convinced that cryopreservation might be the best way to go to give people who would like to have one a good shot, or any shot. I can't really say how high the probability is, but give someone a shot to live significantly longer than they currently can. So now I'm running 2 organizations. One is a non-profit foundation based in Switzerland, which does basic research and is the long-term storage facility for cryopreserved patients. And then one operative day-to-day organization called Tomorrow Biostasis, which is based here in Berlin, which does all the information, which does contracts and all the medical procedures that are needed to put someone in cryopreservation. But now let's briefly run through the topic. So first of all, I think one of the questions to discuss first is, why would anybody even want to live significantly longer? And the people who reach out to us or are our members, there's a wide variety of different reasons and motivations. Some just like life, would like to live as long as they would like to, basically have the choice to decide how long they would like to live. Others are interested in seeing the future, like just this curiosity, and so on. And then last but not least, some people think just morally speaking, it's a better world if people can decide how long they would like to live. So no matter what the motivation is, it's not really for us to decide. We're there to help make it possible, so to speak. Then I think two concepts are quite important if you haven't talked and thought about this topic a lot, to kind of get into the right mind frame when you think about these kind of futuristic sounding topics. I think one point is what is quite important for the cryopreservation space. Whenever we talk about longevity and living longer and life extension and so on, it's not really about being kept alive or anything like that. It's about living longer while being healthy, both mentally and physically. So that's, I think, an important point. And then the second point is, of course, we're talking about topics that are relatively far in the future, or at least the revival part is relatively far in the future. I think here it's always important to keep in mind that because something is currently impossible, doesn't mean it won't be possible in the future. And in fact, you can think about a lot of topics in the past that were deemed impossible, and then at some point people started to think, hey, this might actually be possible, and now a lot of them are just absolutely standard. One good example, for example, is transcontinental airplanes, right? If you talk to someone like, let's say, 500 years ago, they would definitely have said, hey, this does not seem to be possible to fly in 6 hours to another continent, to the US, for example. And then at some point, flight became a thing, and now, of course, it's standard. You can do it every day at a relatively affordable price. Just like that kind of moved from impossible to, hey, it's standard, cryopreservation currently is somewhere on the path between these two points. So it's very much imaginable that stuff that is today practically impossible will be very possible or even standard in the future. Now, when we get into the topic a bit, it's actually not a new topic. So there have been a lot of people have been thinking about this topic for a long, long time. Most prominently, maybe in the very long time ago, was Benjamin Franklin, who of course didn't argue for cryopreservation how it is being done right now, but fundamentally a similar approach, a preservation approach that is relatively similar to how, fundamentally how cryopreservation works right now. And then, of course, these topics always start, or usually start, in Silicon Valley with people who are wealthy people. But it's definitely not a topic that is only available for wealthy people. It's in fact available for basically everybody who decides that they would like to try. And we ran a relatively large study a couple of years ago where we asked people, hey, is cryopreservation something that you're interested in? And a large percentage, 26% if I remember correctly, said cryopreservation is something that I would like to do. Sorry, the 26% figure that you see is actually even a more aggressive figure, or a more aggressive question. So when we asked, hey, if you could live indefinitely, would this be something that you would like to do? And 26% said, yeah, this is something that I would pick. Cryopreservation was always around, is cryopreservation something that you would choose? We're somewhere in the 30 to 40% range. Nevertheless, it is something that more and more people are looking to do, and it is something that has gotten more and more affordable and more approachable. So now let's briefly look at what cryopreservation or medical biostasis actually is. So it is a procedure that is being done after someone has been legally pronounced dead. It can only be done at that point because it's a research procedure. At that point, you use very, very low temperatures and what is called a medical cryoprotective agent to basically keep the body in a state so that no further degradation is happening. Where then you keep the neural structure, the brain structure, and all of that intact, so that at some point in the future, once medical technology has advanced enough, so that first the cause, the disease, the illness that led to the person's death can be cured, and then secondarily that you can actually revive someone from cryopreservation, that then those people might be resuscitated in the future and can live on in the future. Now, it's definitely not freezing, right? So if you talk about cryopreservation, this is one of the pictures here that you see. That was from one article that was written about us, where the picture is always an ice cube or a brain in an ice cube or whatever, right? It's far from that. It's not freezing at all. It's a specialized procedure where actually a lot of what we do is being employed to not freeze anything, to just cool something down without having ice crystals, without ice crystals forming. And once you have achieved this condition, which is called a vitrified state, then you can maintain that state practically indefinitely, because it's not a liquid state anymore. This vitrified state is kind of like an amorphous glass-like structure where no degradation, no metabolic activity or anything like that is going on anymore, and in turn also no degradation is happening. And then you maintain that state until in the future, the procedure can be reversed. Now let's quickly look at what the steps are to be cryopreserved. So first of all, of course, it is make the decision if this is something that you would like to do. Then you can sign up with us or other organizations. Cryopreservation costs, of course, money. I'll talk about that in a second. So you need to put funding in place, and then you live your life. Hopefully, nothing will happen for a very long time. But if anything happens that might cause your death, there's monitoring, and then an emergency team and a medical emergency team would be dispatched from our side, and once you have been legally pronounced dead, then we take over and start the cryopreservation procedure with cooling down the body as quick as possible to basically reduce metabolic activity and stop the cells on a cellular level from degrading. Now, you would be then transported to a cryopreservation facility and then actually put into cryopreservation. And now you would be able to wait there in that state, in that vitrified state, as I just explained, for however long it might take. It might be, it doesn't really matter if it's 10 years or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 or 150. It's probably not going to be 10, 20 or 30. It's probably going to be significantly longer. There needs to be still a lot of technical questions and issues and problems need to be solved until revival can be fundamentally, potentially possible. It's definitely not something that I can guarantee. There's a lot of research that needs to be done, but fundamentally, arguably, there's no reason why it, in principle, should not work. And then, well, once you're being revived, then you would be able to live or continue living your life in the, well, potentially rather far future. If you go one step further, let me quickly change the slide. So if you now say, hey, I've decided that I would like to do this, then you can go to our webpage, tomorrow, biostasis.com. You see the domain here on the slide, and within a couple of clicks, sign up with us. We walk you through the whole process. We're more than happy to have a call with you. We're also more than happy to discuss if you don't want to sign up with us, but with another organization, we're also down to help you with that. But of course, at least if you're based in Europe, we would argue there are a couple of arguments why signing up with us might make more sense. But if in the end you decide to go for another organization, one in the US or so on, then that's totally fine as well. Then the second step, once you have actually, you went to our webpage, you said, hey, sign up. Then the second step would be, actually it's called the first step here on this slide, you would become a member, right? Becoming a member just needs a couple of information like name, email address, telephone number, and the payment method, right? Can be PayPal, can be credit card, can be direct debit, and so on. So that is for the membership fee. There's a 25 euro per month membership fee, and that is basically there to keep the medical team on standby, to keep the equipment and all of that, everything that would be needed for cryopreservation in the case that something happens to you, to keep that kind of on demand, available on demand, and of course also pay for all overhead at the organizations. Now, once you've done that step, then the next step would be that we would email you directly after signing up, after step one. We would automatically email you a biostasis contract. That is a contract that basically where you say, hey, I would like to be cryopreserved, and we say, okay, so then in those cases, this is how we would do it. This is the contract that enables us to do the cryopreservation itself. It includes a body donation contract as the legal basis for cryopreservation and all the other provisions that are needed. And then, last but not least, we would give you a couple of options how to fund your cryopreservation contract. And I'll show you on the next couple of slides how the funding works, which is always a topic where usually a couple of questions arise. So if any questions arise, feel free to put them in the YouTube chat and I'll answer them after the quick introduction. So for funding, there can be a couple of options. You can get cryopreservation contracts for around 50,000 euros about. And then, once you go a bit higher, then at around 200,000 or so, this is currently what I would argue is status or the state of the art. Usually, there are a couple of options where you can put more money aside, but this is usually, you have diminishing returns. It doesn't really make sense to put like 300 or 400 or whatever thousand euros aside. And of course, it's very important to note that you don't need to pay this money up front, right? There are different insurance models or later pay models and so on. Of course, even if you just want to put 100,000 or 50,000, right? These are large amounts, right? So this is not something that someone might easily want to or can just wire. And in fact, we would definitely not advise you to pay up front because there's a couple of downsides. Now, why are these amounts so relatively high? So around 40% of that money is required to do the procedure for the medical team, the equipment that is being used up, the cryoprotective solutions, and so on and so on. So the procedure itself is around 40% of the money. The other 60% of the money are there for maintaining long-term cryopreservation storage. The reason why these amounts needs to be relatively high, for example, just to give you an example, it's around 120,000 euros if you do storage in Switzerland with the non-profit foundation and the non-profit facility that we work with. The reason for that, again, is that since we don't know when revival will be possible, so this might be many, many years in the future, right? It might be 100 years or it might be more than 100 years in the future. We basically need to be able to maintain cryopreservation indefinitely. And the only way how to do that is that you don't actually use up the money, but you invest the money and then take the return and pay for maintenance of cryopreservation out of the return. And this is what we do, and this is why the amount needs to be so relatively high. So let's look at the options that you have for funding. So you see in the middle here basically an age line from around. Actually, the slide is slightly wrong. This 100, the number 100 should be on the very right and not in the middle of the slide. So let me tell you how it would work. So on top, one of the very typical funding methods is what is called term life insurance, which is basically a risk insurance, like taking out car insurance, liability insurance for your car, which is insurance where if you die during the term of the term life insurance, the insurance would pay out the whole amount, in our case around 200,000 euros, to then fund cryopreservation out of that. Again, like we also have options where with some partners we can do around 100 or even 50, but the standard case is 200,000 euros. So one important topic or one important point to note for term life insurance is it has a term, meaning that it runs out at some point. So this only makes sense if you're relatively young, let's say 20, 25, 30, 35, somewhere in that range, but it can also go higher, but this is the typical range. Now you take out this insurance and then the term, for example, runs until let's say you're 60 or 65. The advantage is that it is has a very low cost per month, like 30, sometimes it can go 40 and can go a bit higher depending if you have any medical pre-existing conditions or are a smoker or something like that. But in general, it's very affordable on a monthly basis. And of course, the insurance can only do that because at any point, if you die, they would need to pay out 200,000 euros. They can only do it because, of course, they don't need to pay out for everybody because some people, of course, live significantly longer than the term runs. So this is only a solution for the younger years to protect those where you might not be able to, for example, pay 200,000 euros out of pocket. Now, most people who are signed up start with that. Now, it makes a lot of sense to start with it, but it's not enough to just say, hey, now you have term life insurance, now I need to never think about it again. You need to think about, okay, how would I fund my cryopreservation contract once term life insurance runs out, let's say at the age of 60. And there are a couple of options. So there are insurances that are kind of like savings plans, for example, whole life insurance. There's technically the option for direct payment. Most people, of course, when they're 60 or 65, they have significantly more personal wealth than when they're, let's say, 20, 30, or 40 or whatever, right? So it might be possible then to pay out of pocket in the future. And last but not least, we're very much working on and trying to make cryopreservation significantly cheaper over time. So my hope would be that in the future, when, let's say, someone who's 30 right now and has taken out term life insurance for 30 years, that then in the future, once this term life insurance runs out, when they're 60, that at that point we would already be able to offer a high quality, state-of-the-art cryopreservation significantly cheaper than those 200,000 euros. So all of this funding topic, it's a relatively complex topic, combining different insurances, term life insurance, whole life insurance, and so on. So this is definitely something where we're more than happy to have another call or a one-to-one conversation if anybody's interested and wants to understand in more depth how this works in detail and how they might be able to use those funding methods for funding their cryopreservation contract. Long story short, it is possible to fund cryopreservation without needing to put down or wire amounts like 50 or 100 or 200,000 euros. It's basically possible to do it in smaller amounts and then secure funding like that. So feel free to reach out at any point if you want to talk more about this topic. So, but for now, one of the topics that people always ask, like, why should I sign up now, right? Let's assume you're 30 or even 25 or 40, right? It always feels like, well, you know, the probability of dying at 40 is pretty low, right? So I might as well wait, you know, another 20 years or another 30 years and do it then. Which, of course, technically that's true. The probability of dying at 20, 30, 40 is pretty low. There's a couple of reasons why, if you fundamentally are into cryopreservation and feel like this is a good idea and you want to do it, then it makes sense to sign up early. So one of the reasons is that signing up early, at least from an insurance standpoint, if you do it with term life insurance, it's significantly easier and cheaper to do it early. The second reason is that it is even possible that if you want to take out term life insurance and fund your cryopreservation with that, let's say in 10 years, that you would have been diagnosed with any medical conditions in the meantime. And if it's a relatively serious medical condition, you might not qualify for insurance anymore. So you might not even get insurance and then would always need to pay out of pocket if you want to do cryopreservation. Last but not least, one of the advantages is that term life insurance gives you, in quotation marks, instant protection. So the second the contract has been accepted by the insurance, if you die 1 day, 2 days, whatever, or a week later, then the whole amount would already be paid out and cryopreservation can be done. Now, that of course is meaningful for these low probability events that you get hit by a car, or you're being diagnosed with cancer, at 45 or whatever, right? So there's of course probability statistically that's not super likely, but unfortunately it happens regularly, meaning that and of course, last but not least, one important point is that of course, due to this low probability, the cost that you pay for term life insurance is basically risk adjusted. Because the term life insurance is a risk insurance, and of course the insurance knows that the probability of dying early is pretty low. That's why the cost is already also low. Of course, the insurance makes some money with it, so there's some fee, of course, on the insurance side, but all in all, the cost is relatively low. So I would argue, if you fundamentally have decided that cryopreservation is something that makes sense, then I think it makes sense to sign up relatively early, or even tomorrow, kind of. All right, now let's go to the next step. Let's say something happens to you. I'm going to speed up a bit to have enough time for Q&A. If something happens, right? How does it work, right? In those cases, we have medical teams at multiple locations in Europe, right? One is based here in Berlin, in Germany. We have a partner in Amsterdam, and we're currently building a team for Zurich in Switzerland. We're also collaborating with local teams in the Nordics, like Norway, Sweden, and in Finland, and in Spain, and in Italy, and so on. We're actually going to do much more of that. We're going to collaborate and help and support local teams much more, to make sure that wherever you are in Europe, there is good quality, standby and preservation capabilities. The main preservation capabilities are always basically retrofitted ambulances that we retrofit, that can be dispatched with a medical team to wherever the patient is, and then do the whole procedure basically on site, or start the procedure and then continue the procedure at the facility in Switzerland. Now, the facility in Switzerland, this is a picture. It's not absolutely up to date. It's a couple of months old, when there was still some construction going on. This is a purpose-built cryopreservation research and long-term storage facility that we've been building for a while. It has an operating theater. It has a lab space. It has like high security underground storage for cryopreserved patients, and so on and so on. It's the only cryopreservation facility in Europe, and to my knowledge, it's worldwide the only one that is purpose-built for that very topic. If you want to take a look and see it for yourself, we're organizing a conference in October called Biostasis 2022, which will be on the 21st to 23rd of October, so save the date, soon on our Tomorrow webpage, and also on the EBF webpage, which is the foundation. There will be an announcement, and you can sign up to join. Now, After that, of course, once you're then being cryopreserved, then, well, the only thing that you kind of still need to do is wait. As I said, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done. Part of that research we are doing. Part of that research we do through the foundation. Basically, we do applied research and translational research. The foundation does more basic and translational research to make sure that that research is being done. We also do fund external research projects and so on and so on. In the end, it doesn't really matter how long it takes. It might take, as I said, 100+ years until revival is possible. But once you're in cryopreservation, nothing happens anymore. So there's no maximum amount of time that someone can be cryopreserved. The foundation is also built in a way so that it is optimized for maximum security and stability to make sure that it is still around once, for 100 years in the future. And then, very much last but not least, once revival is possible, then the idea, of course, is that you can live on in the future or live again, or however you want to call that, but definitely continue to enjoy your life. Knowing, of course, that that is not a guarantee, right? There's still a lot of research that needs to be done to make it happen. I can't guarantee you, I can't even tell you how high the probability is that it will in fact work. But I can very much argue that fundamentally, there is no known reason why this should fundamentally not work. And in fact, you can do it with organs, you can do it with, of course, cells, you can do it with some model organisms, with animals in a lab, so they can be fully cryopreserved, be taken out of cryopreservation, they continue to live on, they retain their memories, and so on. So there's a good amount of indirect evidence. It's not possible yet for humans, but it might be in the future. So if you would like to reach out to us, there's a telephone number. Feel free to just give us a call, send me an email. You see my email address on the slide as well. Or book a call with me. There's a Calendly link where you can book a video call if you want to talk more in detail. Feel free to reach out for any questions that you might have. And now, before we come to an end and start with Q&A, one more quick reminder that we're running this conference. We do this annually. All the who's who of the cryopreservation and biostasis space are usually speakers. The next biostasis conference will be in October 21st to 23rd, 2022 in Switzerland at the facility and around it. So feel free to save the date and then let us know if you want to join. Now, we would switch over for Q&A. So any questions that you might have, I'm more than happy to answer. And I'll wait a second until I see the questions, and then we can get going. All right. Cool. So the first question is it conceivable in the future to have a funding program that does not involve an intermediate lump sum payment on death for people who have someone willing to pay for them on an ongoing basis? So this is unfortunately currently not something that is possible. And the reason for that is basically the following. So let's imagine we are in a scenario where it really takes 100 years until someone can be revived from cryopreservation. Actually, I'm getting an iPad, even better, then I can see it a bit shorter, closer. So let's assume it takes 100 years until someone can be revived from cryopreservation. Now, it's possible, of course, that someone is willing to pay and then they pay for the first, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be. But no one can really guarantee that someone will be around for, let's say, 100 years or any shorter amount either, that they will really continue paying on an ongoing basis, let's say the family or someone like that. And of course, if they would stop paying, then the organization who has someone in cryopreservation only has two options. Either they need to kind of continue paying for that person, and which would require money from everybody else who is cryopreserved and who paid up front, or they would need to take that patient out of cryopreservation, basically. None of those two options is a good option, and in fact, none of those two options is a feasible option. So all trustworthy cryopreservation organizations that I'm aware of have decided that the full amount, however they calculate it, the full amount needs to be available upfront at the time of cryopreservation, so that the maintenance of cryopreservation can be paid out of the interest. Next questions would be, and by the way, if I'm not fully answering any questions, or you feel like I'm not answering, feel free to send in other questions and specify and elaborate a bit more, and then I'll come back to it. Next question would be, I'm sure many younger members have older family members, oh, this is actually the same person, who they would like to sign up, but not would be in a position to pay the whole lump sum immediately. Yeah, I very much agree. This is a non-ideal situation. I just don't think there's any other way. I don't think you cannot take someone in cryopreservation where you then rely on someone else who might 5 years, 10 years, at some point in the future, reconsider and decide to not, decide to not continue paying. I'm not aware of any solution that is feasible in that regard. Next question would be, is it possible to keep a trust wallet after my death? I'm not sure what you mean by trust wallet. Maybe you mean like a safe deposit box where you can store a couple of things. If not, feel free to elaborate. That is very much possible. In fact, the long-term storage facilities, most of them offer some variety of that. So do we in Switzerland. So if you have some, valuable or sentimental items that you would want to keep, that is very much possible to keep them. Next question would be, what are the considerations for people living in the UK? I noticed it wasn't listed in the countries mentioned earlier. So it wasn't listed, but not because there's any problem with the UK or anything like that. It was just not, it wasn't on top of my mind when I mentioned a couple of groups that we've been in contact with recently. So in the UK, there is a relatively, there's a team that has been doing cryopreservations for a long time called Cryings UK. They're good people. We have members in the UK, of course, with Amsterdam and also with Berlin. We have teams that are relatively close. The more problems are, let's say, you're in the very north or in Norway or in Sweden, or you're in Portugal in the very south of Europe and so on. Then it takes a bit more time to get there. And of course, we have flight kits where Berlin or Zurich, London, or flying to the UK, there's a lot of flights. It's very easy to get there. So in most cases, there is that isn't much of an issue. So we're more than happy to collaborate with local organizations, right? If anybody wants to build a new local organization or new local, like a very hyper-local first response, first aid team, for example, in some city in the UK, then we're more than happy to support that. So if this is something you might be interested in, feel free to reach out, and we can discuss deeper. Of course, we don't rely on people doing the whole procedure. It's just the plan is here. In cryopreservation, it's quite important to do fast initial cooling. So if you have a local team that works just significantly better and is logistically actually possible. So we're supporting these local teams if anybody wants to build one. Next question is, any chance for the local team to be created in Finland? Actually, yeah. So I've been to Helsinki just a couple of days ago, actually, like 2 weekends ago or something like that, discussing with the local organizations there, and there's a lot of discussion going on that there will actually be a team. Not 100% sure where exactly it will be stationed, or maybe there will be multiple, but definitely in the Nordics, things are happening and we're in discussion. So there's a high probability that something will be there relatively soon, and we're more than happy to support that. So if you're in Finland, actually we have a good amount of members in Finland. Finland is definitely a country where it makes sense to sign up, because preservation quality will probably be pretty good there. Next question would be, what can we do to help set up a community in our area where there isn't one yet? Yeah, so cryopreservation communities, usually, they're just started by someone who starts bringing in a couple of people to do, I don't know, meet once in a while. I think the very best thing a local community can do, and kind of also to use it as an activity to do together, is build first aid capabilities, right? Cryopreservation first aid capabilities. If this is something that you would like to do, then feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help you and kind of give you like an initial guide or list of things what to do to build one of those teams, right? So this makes a lot of sense, and then you can't really expect that there will be like 20 people, everybody, a large amount of people want to join and are super engaged. But this is also not really necessary, right? So if there's like 3, 4, even 2 people, 5 people, whatever it might be, then it already makes sense to do something together and build capabilities on site. So this is definitely something I think that can be the most meaningful thing, because if you build these capabilities, then it's actually something meaningful, right? You have done something. You can then go out and talk to other people about it, and it's not like, hey, we're basically just like a social club and we talk about this topic. No, we actually do something. Which then helps attract other people as well. So if this is something that you're interested in, definitely reach out and let's talk. Next question would be, is there a discount for people present in the webinar? Absolutely. I'm not sure if anybody from my team is in the call, because I don't know the discount code. But if you reach out to us and request and say, hey, I was in the webinar, can I have a discount code? Then we're more than happy to send anybody and everybody who's in the call a discount code. The discount code's always, if you sign up within the next 2 weeks, then there's a higher discount, but if you decided to do it in a month, there's also still a discount. So if you have already decided and have made up your mind, reach out immediately in quotation marks, and we'll send you a discount code, and we're more than happy to have you on board then. And if there is someone from my team on the call, then maybe someone will post the discount code into the chat. Otherwise, just reach out. Is the insurance, that's the next question, is the insurance option available to any European Union citizens? Yes, it is. So we're collaborating with an insurance broker with a bit of it's not a unique, it's a structure where we can provide insurances basically all over Europe. The reason how we do that is that we as Tomorrow Biostasis, we are the policy holder of the insurance policy, and the person is the insured person. Meaning that if the insured person dies, then the money is being paid out to the policyholder, which anyway is supposed to be how the money should flow, right? Because then we would use the money for the cryopreservation procedure. And since we do it that way, we can do it with at least one insurance that is here in Germany. We can do it and insure people all over Europe. But this is just an option. You can use any and all insurances, at least in Europe, to do it. So if you have an insurance already, or you like a local provider, that's totally fine as well. But if you want to reach out to us and discuss with us, then an insurance would work, the one that we work with. Next question is, it is illegal to remove the body of a Spanish citizen from Spain. Do you have permission to do that? So we had not had a Spanish case recently, but there have been Spanish cases. And in those cases, the body was able to be removed from Spain. So what's very important to note, cryopreservation is not burial. It's not the standard burial process. It is a donation to a medical research institute, right? So all these, in quotation marks, standard laws and regulations, they usually do not apply. So in all European countries that I'm aware of, this is not an issue. You can donate your body to a foreign, in quotation marks, foreign medical research entity, organization, facility, and then they can transport the body for this research topic. Because cryopreservation is not a type of burial, it is a type of research. And of course, the research is no research is being done on the patients, apart from the research project that the long-term cryopreservation and then potential revival in the future. That in itself is a research project. Yeah. By the way, the code was just posted in the chat. It's zeitlos, so use the code for sign up. Yeah, we're a bit ahead of time actually. So if there are any questions, then feel free to post those questions into in the chat, and then I'm answering them as much as I can. Yeah. There's another question just came in. How has Tomorrow Biostasis made sure it'll be financially sustainable in the long term? So the long-term storage is actually not done with Tomorrow Biostasis. It is done with a non-profit foundation in Switzerland. So it's very important that storage is always done with non-profit, like fully independent organizations. And in fact, every trustworthy organization does it like that. So in the US, there's, Elko does it with a patient care trust and so on and so on. And we do it with the foundation in Switzerland. The financial stability always comes from the fact that, so if we take the example storage in Switzerland, around 120,000 euros are being transferred to that non-profit foundation. So that money is being used to invest at a very, very low, with a very low risk class, with around the assumption to make 1 to 2%, like 1 to 2% yield per year above inflation. So historically, 1 to 2% yield per year was always achievable with very, very, very low risk products. In fact, the average over the last 50 years or so, the average from treasury bonds in the US was 1.9%. So due to that, and of course now we're living in a bit of a weird financial times, right, with very low inflation over the last couple of years and now very high inflation right now. But this will probably equal out to around 2% again. So you need around 3 to 4% return, and it's actually much closer to 3% than to 4% to maintain everybody in cryopreservation. So due to this low requirement of yield, of return per year, it can be very, very stably maintained. Next question is, let's imagine someone lives until they're 85 or 90 years old and hasn't fully completed the payment of 200,000 euros with their past term life insurance. Just a short correction here. So if you're still alive, term life insurance does not pay out anything. Term life insurance only pays out at the time of death and only in that point. Otherwise, you don't get money back or anything like that. So term life insurance is really purely like a risk insurance. Think of your car insurance. If you don't have a crash, then the insurance never pays out anything. And if the term of your car insurance runs out, then the insurance also doesn't give you any money back, because basically you have gotten the service. The service is the in case something happens, then we're paying thing. So term life insurance is very similar. If you die within the term, then they pay out. If you die after, they don't pay out anything, and they also don't give anything back. But maybe you mean whole life insurance. In whole life insurance, yeah, you pay in and you get back what you paid in plus interest and return. So let's assume you're 90 and you don't have insurance in place, and the money that you saved in your whole life insurance is not sufficient yet. In that case, the question would be, would Tomorrow Biostasis considering to negotiate with another cryopreservation companies to send that person's body for a cheaper or alternative method to cryopreserve body? Absolutely. So 100% yes. In my mind, everybody who wants to should have the option to be cryopreserved. It doesn't matter if they have 200,000 euros or 50,000 euros or 10,000 euros or 5,000 euros or 1,000 euros. So everybody who wants to, it should only be, have they thought about this topic and have they decided, yes, I would like to do that. That's the only consideration. It should not be dependent on money. So let's assume someone calls us tomorrow and says, hey, I've been just diagnosed with cancer. Or let's take the 85-year-old who has been a member with us for, let's say, 20 years or 30 years or 50 years. And for whatever reason, financially, it didn't go as planned and they don't have enough money. We would do everything in our power in this case that this person still gets cryopreservation, is still cryopreserved. It might not be storage in Switzerland. We might not be able, depending on how much money is available, we might not be able to send, all of our medical team and all doctors and everything. But we would spend all the money that is available to be able to then cryopreserve that patient as good as possible. So, and that also would be the case if the person hasn't been our member. We would still try. So in all cases, cryopreservation should happen with the best possible technology that can be paid for. So that would absolutely yes. So I need to head out, unfortunately, in around 5 minutes. So if there are any last-minute questions, then please send them now. Otherwise, I would like to thank there are actually 2 more questions, I think. Are there discounts for members of the same family? Yes, there are discounts as well. So if you tell us that, hey, a family member of you has already signed up, or you sign up now and then a family member signs up in the future. So there are no automated discount codes, but if you just tell us, then we give you a family discount depending on how many members are already signed up. Just reach out to us. Whatever the case is, and of course, if multiple people sign up at the same time and say, hey, we're a family, then that also applies. Last question, how much do bad health conditions affect the membership fee? So the membership fee is actually not affected at all. What is affected by pre-existing conditions and bad health is the cost of the term life insurance. Since term life insurance, again, is a risk insurance, they do a medical checkup. They need to understand if you're healthy and how high the risk of dying relatively soon is. So in that case, if there are any pre-existing conditions or just things that have a higher risk like smoking or overweight and these kinds of things, there might be a price increase. Sometimes there isn't, depending on what it is exactly, but there might be a price increase. And if it's a very, very serious medical condition, then it is even possible that the insurance says, unfortunately, we can't insure you. Then sometimes it's possible to find another insurance or find other kind of funding methods. We're more than happy to help in those cases if that should be the case, and try to do everything again to put funding into place. There was one more question. Thank you. You're doing very important work. Thanks a lot. I was very dissatisfied that there were no cryopreservation options in Europe before you. I was wondering why this is. So this was one of the reasons why we initiated one. So I used to be a member with the US, or actually when I'm in the US, I still am, with the US organization. The main advantage why signing up with the European organization is because if something happens, we're just closer. We can respond quicker, we can start the cool-down process quicker, and that, of course, is one of the very important parts for achieving a high-quality cryopreservation. So the reasons why there weren't many organizations, I'm aware of 2 main reasons. One main reason is that starting an organization is quite complex. There isn't just, you can't just read a book and then say, hey, awesome, now I know everything, and now this is just the recipe how to start an organization, right? There aren't YouTube videos, YouTube tutorials about, how to do cryopreservations. It's a lot of knowledge from medicine, from cryobiology, from logistics, from biology that kind of come together, and you kind of need to know everything to build an organization. You also need to have storage somewhere. So building storage is quite expensive, right? So the complexity of it is one reason. And then the other reason, I think, and it might be the bigger reason, is cryopreservation organizations, all good ones, they're not there to make money. They're mission driven. So they're there. So I'm building the organization, and all of our people who are doing that, they're not doing it to make money. They're doing it since I would like to be cryopreserved with the very best technology in the future. And I think everybody should have that right as well, right? And I plan to, over the next 30, 20, 40, 50 years, to improve the quality more and more and more and more, right? So, but if you don't have this intrinsic motivation for this topic, then it's not easy to make money with it. It's not easy to, these organizations, there aren't millions and millions of people who want to be cryopreserved. So for a lot of people who kind of have, think about organizations from a more financial standpoint, building an organization in a cryopreservation space doesn't seem to me make much sense. And I tend to agree. It's very difficult to make money with cryopreservation organizations. So I think these two issues together are the reason why there aren't, say, 20 organizations in Europe. Every country has one, and so on. I think these are, and there might be some smaller issues as well, but these, I think, are the main topics, the main reasons. All right, so last but not least, I would like to thank everybody to join the webinar. We will do more of those. There will also be more advanced webinars where this was the introductory one. We will also do one where we dig a bit deeper into technology and details and so on. So feel free to join those as well and keep your eye open for an invitation. And then if anybody wants to reach out, I think for everybody who has decided that this is something they want to do, it is time to do it now, right? There's no reason to wait, basically. So call us, give us a call, talk to us, and we're more than happy to help. And very quickly before I need to go, what is the time delay between the disappearance of vital signs and the declaration of legal death when you can start your procedure? Is it different in various European countries? Yes, it is. It is country dependent. Usually, it is possible within, let's say, within basically immediately to around 2 hours, somewhere in that range, right? In Germany, for example, the earliest point that we can start is around 15 to 20 minutes after circulatory arrest. So it is usually not immediate, but it also doesn't need to be immediate. You need to start cooling as quick as possible, but a couple of minutes, even potentially an hour, or 2 hours, it's not quite clear what is the cutoff, but it does not necessarily need to be absolutely immediately. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I need to head out. Thanks again, everybody, for joining in. Thanks for all your questions. And again, reach out to us and don't put it up for long to sign up if you have decided that you do want to do it. And if you have any questions, if this is for you, more than happy to talk to you as well. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.